And hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing live show number 124. That's right, 124 times every week for a little over 2 years. We've been coming to you from, I guess, let's see, 26 countries now we have, a little over 6,000 attendees. Lots of fun stuff. Ironically, we had a lot of our audiences coming from those who watch the show after the live performance of it. But nonetheless, great to have everyone involved. Thank you so very much for those who join us live and also for those who join us remotely and at different time zones and play back our recordings, which I'm still trying to analytically look at why we have this massive surge of audience 2 weeks after we go live. And we have Mr. Stuart Butler. It's like a Christmas miracle. I feel like Tiny Tim. It's a Christmas miracle. God bless you all. And with that, we'll have Mr. Stuart Butler with us, which would be absolutely awesome because he's way more versed and intelligent than I am.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, may the force be with you.
Did you see it yet?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I've been too freaking big. What's with this client stuff? It's like, what? All of a sudden, everybody wants to go over and do business at Christmas. I mean, come on.
If you haven't noticed, there's like this magical date, like January 1, for whatever reason. People think if stuff's not done by January 1st, like the world collapses. All of 2018 is going to be for naught if they don't January 1.
Yeah, it's like 1999, December 31st. If you don't have your 2K set up, you are going to crash and burn.
That's right.
Mr. Robert Cole, how are you, sir? Merry Christmas.
It's Kelso.
Kelso! Okay. Wait, where's the piano keyboard? Come on, let's do this. Oh, do we lose audio?
I'm here.
Robert? No, but Robert died.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good. But Robert. Kelso, come plug Robert. I didn't even send over topics, which I normally do because
Kelso muted me.
Yeah, exactly. She will take over the show. Merry Christmas, Mr. Robert.
It's not Christmas yet.
It's getting there.
Tis the season, sir. Tis the season.
Tis the season. What are you?
I've been working.
All of a sudden.
I've been busy working.
That's what we're just bitching about. It's like what happened December 31st, January 1st is this magical moment of self-destruction if not everything's done by then. And I guess everybody decided this week that if you don't do it by 5 o'clock Friday the 22nd, there's no hope of
I have a traditional working relationship with my clients, which is really kind of, my Bob Cratchit to their Ebenezer Scrooge. So it's like work. We need that.
Nice.
Oh man. Hey, I really honestly I have a bunch of little loose end things from this week to talk about and so forth, but I'm completely open ended. If there's a burning conversation, because for me, I was kind of looking at it as like, next week's kind of the yearly recap of, what you could wish and stuff. But, Stuart, since you did the wonderful questionnaire of what would be wishes for people in 2018, I thought, you know what? I hope you're on the show so you can share some of the loveliness of what you
I have no wishes. Yeah.
You have everything you want, right?
Living in the present.
Yeah. True. Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay.
We posted that question. I sent it out to a bunch of people. We put it on Twitter and Facebook. Got a ton of responses. So we're recording an episode of the Fuel podcast today, and we're just going to read them out and kind of discuss them. It's probably, believe it or not, going to go off the rails like most of our episodes do.
Oh, really?
Like this show does often too.
This show does not. We are very focused. We have I'm trying to do a straight face. Don't laugh. Look, come on. No. A good straight face here, okay, and we're very concise and we're very driven and we have a very specific. Okay, I can't say that anymore. Anyway,
it's not going to work. But I would say a lot of the responses there's an overriding theme I think that we saw through a lot of the responses. A lot of them are around data, like being able to use data more intelligently. A lot of them are around like collaboration between different groups within organizations and vendors and integrations and stuff. So, there weren't really any surprises, I think. And, we'll kind of get into them in more depth in the show, but a lot of it was around that kind of stuff. The things we talk about on this show all the time.
I shared with Ed my first Christmas wish with you, which was I hope I'm as right as he is confident.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You bookended a really serious wish with two really good ones. There was the Ed one, and then you wanted a lightsaber as well, which I really appreciate.
I mean, you asked, and I thought, well, really genuinely, because this Christmas has been great for me. I can't show you from this laptop. As you can see, there's a different vantage point because I got myself a new Mamma Jamma Bama iMac 5K 27-inch boom bada bing.
Wow.
Bells, whistles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah. You. Oh, dude, Santa has been good to me this year. We lost Robert. Yeah. They killed Kenny. Yeah.
I saw an article the other day. They were talking about the new Mac Pros, and like if you Mac'd it out completely, added every bell and whistle, it could cost you up to $13,000. It's like, 16,000. Is it 16,000?
Wow. Yeah, the new Mac Pro. See, I was waiting for it to come out because they weren't initially saying prices. And the baseline iMac Pro is $5K, just to get the 8 core processor. I got an 8 core processor with this one. This is not the iMac Pro. I keep pointing over here, but it's their biggest one below that in the sense that it's I jacked up the RAM on it.
Amateur? Is that what it is?
Yeah. It's actually called the 5K. I don't know why, because I mean the resolution is freaking phenomenal. I've never ever in my life had a screen this big with this resolution. And I wanted to do the live show on it, but in my assimilation of moving over to it, I have yet to get all this stuff on it. And I'm like, the last thing I need is for this thing to not connect correctly or something. So I said, I'll just stay with the laptop for this show and then get back over to it later. But I'm totally in awe of it. I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner? I know why, because it's so freaking expensive. It cost me, I think, $3,500 just for this one. So, but it's like, I got myself a new cool computer. I'm so cool. Yeah, that, and I got my watch and my phone and my iPad Pro. I'm like, Apple.
and a good thing, Apple gets $47 billion when they come and repatriate some of their offshore funds. So
yeah.
I'm sure they'll be lowering prices.
Oh, of course. It's trickling down. The jobs are going up and bonuses are going up. And how ironic that bonuses to companies that are in solicitation of legal changes. I mean, what's the coincidence of that happening concurrently?
Oh, the net neutrality. Yeah, it's all Comcast and AT&T going.
Yeah, they're giving bonuses. Who's stroking who on that one? That's a circle around. But yes. It's unfortunate that we're in that current environment for it because as a small business owner, I mean, it's weird that this polarity is like, it benefits the small business. I mean, for me, it's like, wow, this is great from the business side of it, but it's like really at the expense of who? I mean,
no. You may need to change depending on how you classify yourself. There is a carve out for professional services where you may not be able to get the pass through discount. You may need to incorporate, Lauren. So
I am incorporated.
Check with your packet.
I'm incorporated.
Oh, you are an LLC. You're an S corp?
Huh? I'm subject.
Yep.
Subject to S. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I've always been an LLC, so we will have to see if I need
so
to.
What topically
play by the available rules or not?
Yep.
Same rules for everyone. You just got to play.
Yeah. I have to apologize. I actually know that I've rebooted my internet system here twice because for some reason Comcast, or not Comcast, but CenturyLink, as I spit on the floor saying that, is giving me issues this morning. So I made you both administrative on the presentation, so that in case I do fall off, it doesn't die with the show. So because you're kind of jerky to me now, and I hope that it clears up.
Net neutrality, and so it begins.
Yeah, right. Yeah, obviously they're slowing down the more popular shows.
That's right. Yeah, they don't want that word.
Exactly. Well, Lauren, you are driving so much bandwidth by broadcasting this across 27 different live streaming platforms. So
this is true.
CenturyLink is probably throttling me at this point. It's like, oh, that dude's on again. Hold on, dial it down.
YouTube's sitting there going, why are we slowing down again? We're getting some.
What's broke the internet once more, Lauren.
Yeah, broke the internet once more. Well, so what's some of the feedback?
Some sort of denial of service attack. Oh no, it's Lauren.
It's just Lauren. Friday morning. Oh, we know what that is. Yeah. So what's some of the responses they gave you that were not surprising, but by the same token, what were some of the leading ones? I mean, I know what mine was, but did anybody say the same thing that I had or similar?
Yeah,
to it?
yeah, there was a few. I don't think anyone was like completely unique. Like everyone, I felt like I saw the same responses again and again. And like I said, it was data integration. It was what did Ed say? Ed said something about everyone auditing the full guest journey from start to finish. And I think that kind of encompassed a lot of the little pieces that we were seeing. There was a few that were interesting, just like little features. I think one person said they want to see more payment options integrated with booking engines, which is something we've been working on. We've integrated PayPal and looking at Apple Pay and Google Wallet into our booking engine. But there was a few little tactical things.
That Coinbase interface.
Yeah, that
Coinbase interface in there.
Yeah, do you see how it dropped like 25% in the last couple of days?
Yeah.
I hope people weren't late on that bandwagon.
No, hey, my prediction on that, it's going to be going up and down, because the volatility
is not a bad idea, but yeah, I don't know if it's going to go much more than 20%. With the volatility, the risks, all this, kind of there's a lot of speculation coming out about
people playing
security.
like the futures market, right? Yeah, but you have supposedly about 1,000 people controlling 40% of the of the inventory of this quote commodity, which is not tied to anything. Very, very ripe for actually in this case really untraceable manipulation.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
I
think
that's the sort of thing you got to
hit it right. Is insider trading and some other speculation coming out about just hacking and some security questions about other
Well, the wallets keep getting
hacked,
and that's the big thing. Yeah, the blockchain's fine, but it's slow. It's outrageously slow, and the problem is the wallets, right? And that's what gets hacked. And every time one of these things goes, it's $30 million. A shot. So you got a lot of hackers going, I think there's a payoff here.
Actually, I think I'm sure you'll appreciate this. Somebody was talking to me, and they said they equate Bitcoin a little bit to having a starship without a warp core. It's great. It can't go anywhere because it is. I mean, the opportunity for it, but it's just there's no practical application usage of it right now. I mean, yes, it's uniquely used in certain circumstances, but it's not like you're whipping out a credit card at this point. When it gets to that level of usability, then its real value is there, not just in its potentiality, which seems to be the measuring stick right now for its pricing.
Well, the blockchain's very good and is getting used, right? I mean, you can use it. It's the cryptocurrency aspect of it that is that's the crazy part. Number one, and number two is all these companies who are basically funding startups using ICOs or initial coin offerings. That stuff is freaking nuts because people are making hundreds of millions of dollars based on nothing. They got they barely have they don't even have a cocktail napkin with their business model. It's just, we're doing a coin. Did you see the tea company that changed their name to, it was Long Island Iced Tea to something like Bitcoin or blockchain, and their price like quadrupled. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, you get into it and people don't want to miss. So
So okay, we all started the show bantering about the client demands that we're having, and it as much we're making fun of it because we love the fact that we're in demand at that level and being so busy with it. But what are some of the things you guys are being hit up with? That this end of the year thing. What is it like? We joke about January 1st. If it's not done by then, what are some things that they're looking at? Is it to complete budget spends? Is it let's get this fixed before the new year so I don't have to hear about it next year? I mean, what are some of the things that are bouncing off of you guys?
No, mine are actually all making sure that things are tacked down. So there's between agreements and statements of work and plans and things like that, make sure that we really hit the ground running. So I've got a pile of deliverables like around the 10th for multiple clients sort of thing. So they all want to make sure, hey, when we start up, they're all kind of taking a break and all gone. And then it's like, but when we get back like a week in, we need to be hitting this hard. Because I know I'm fortunate enough to be involved in some pretty interesting projects, which are pretty important to these companies. So I don't blame them. I just have to do a bunch of stuff to make sure that's all ready.
Yeah, we got kind of two types of client right now. We got the folks we've been working with for a long time that I feel like we're in good shape for 2018. You know, we've spent a lot of time over the last several years, you know, building good foundations for them and good plans. And we've gone away in a lot of cases from this kind of day-to-day or month-to-month scrappiness of trying to figure out what campaigns to run. And it's a lot more planned out ahead of time now. We've got most of our long-term clients have 8 to 12 campaigns that they're going to run throughout the year. They know when they're going to start them, when they're going to end them. They know what channels, what messaging. This is already kind of figured out. So we're less reactionary for those kind of clients. But I'll say in 2018 or 2017, I think a lot of people became aware of Fuel and what we can do and where our real strengths are. And you know, one of the things we really feel like we do a great job of is the analytics and data side. Like we've spent a lot of time because we came into this industry backwards. We weren't marketers who figured out technology. We were technology nerds who figured out marketing, right? So we came at it from a different space. And so, you know, our booking engine probably has better analytics integration than any other on the market. I haven't seen anything that competes with it, but we're getting a lot of folks that have come to us and said, I don't understand my data and I'm trying to figure it out. So we got a lot of folks now that we're trying to help through that, like get the foundation in place and figure out where they've been spending money wrong and helping them reallocate that. So we got half that are kind of straightened out and we're ready to go. The other half, we're still scratching our head trying to say, why have you been spending this money here? Because you can't track it and you don't know better. But yeah, so we're kind of in that kind of urgency mode for those folks that are just, you know, being blindly spending for the last several years and trying to fix that.
And been told that, oh yeah, things are going great and you're getting an X 1000% of
exactly. They're trusting the data from the vendors who are charging them, you know, and it's like, stop doing that. You know, it's
please stop doing that.
Stop doing that. So
interesting. I'll share what
guys got in. No, sorry. And I was just saying, you know, these guys run into, hey, you got a 5x ROI, and isn't this wait a second, 5x. If you kind of do that, flip that over, that's about a 20% commission. That's pretty pricey, guys.
So well, did you say, I don't know, it wasn't on the list, but Richard from Flip2 works with Ed had sent over the HomeAway article this week. I'd seen it, but we were just kind of debating back and forward where HomeAway now is increasing their fees by 25%. And then if you're integrated with the platform, so if you're a legitimate management company using HomeAway, they're also going to charge you a 10% commission, but not on 10% commission on what's booked through HomeAway, 10% commission on anything where they can relate a search on their system to your actual direct bookings. So they want you to sync. They want you to sync the bookings you have, and they're going to look at the email addresses, try to identify these people, and if that person ever searched for your property on HomeAway, they're going to charge you 10%. I'm like, well, shit, if you follow that logic through and someone came through HomeAway, TripAdvisor, the local CVB site, another portal, maybe they did Sojourn as well, you're paying like 60% commission for that booking at that point. If everyone followed that methodology. It's
over what period of and for vacation rental, you're gonna have a long window on that too. Exactly. Right? This isn't just like
imagine that's a 30-day window or something. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, I bet they'll go longer than that because
maybe
vacation people book those. They book them a year out.
Yeah, I mean, tell my clients
the averages I think like 60 days? I can't remember. It's 60, 75 days, I think, for a lot of
rentals. Yeah, it's definitely.
So it's a lot of people who book it over, they leave and go, let's go redo this.
Stuart, real quick, is Robert frozen for you, or is it just me?
He always looks pretty still, but now he's moving on mine.
He's not moving on mine. Okay, so it's okay. I can hear him well enough. I would say.
Actually, no. Yeah, he has frozen now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm frozen. Really?
Yeah, you're frozen. Well, for me, you were, but I mean, I hear you well enough. Yeah. But to that end,
it's not a bad picture, Robert. You're probably
no. You look good. Just no funny face. I mean, well, you have normally. It's not uniquely even more funnier than normal, I think, and that's this. But it's funny you bring that up because when it comes to it's like telling them sometimes. For instance, let's just say Sojourn. I deal with clients that they're asking. It's like Sojourn's trying to take care of for one of our group bookings, and I have to remind them. It's like, you should be washing your reservation requests against what they're pitching you, because there's a rule in the contract, or you better make sure it's in your contract, that first time guest acquisition, absolutely they get credit for it. But nothing related to group blocks, nothing related to secondary bookings, and your accounting office needs to go through that process and confirm the confirmations in comparison to previous your CRM data. And honest to goodness, they get lazy. There are some people I've talked to that forgot to do that, or didn't do that, or the accounting office, because the accounting office would just pay a bill. If you give them an invoice and they were authorized to pay those invoices, they pay the invoice. They're not looking for the next step. They're looking to get it off their desk and to go on to the next thing. And then from a revenue management perspective, they're like, hey, we created this relationship for this channel yieldability, and as long as the number looks right, they're not checking it. So eventually, these are the things that fall in those cracks. Is like, no, you got to wash these things. I have a unique thing that's been asked of me. I'm helping a client right now revamp their entire internal reporting structure. They're trying to get off of the static reports that they're creating and the heavy lifting associated with it, and they're trying to create an automation process that can help facilitate some of their internalization and redefine their data presentations internally. And I thought that was an interesting end of the year request. Because I think more companies are going to be looking at that themselves, or if they're not already, and saying, how are we actually understanding the data that we are getting? And is it really costing us? Because when I started doing the analysis of what they're doing, nobody realized how much heavy lifting labor cost was being used to generate these reports that were kind of just looked at and tossed. They look at what, like you look at a star report, tab 4, that's what you look at, RevPAR and market penetration. Anybody else is not a revenue manager. That's the revenue managers look beyond that, but most people just look at tab 4. And a lot of these reports, and for all the effort that was done to create them, were not really being utilized. And a lot of times, as I started doing surveys, I was finding out that either it was not being looked at. If it was being looked at, it was being looked at for certain specific similar things consistently. They're only looking, like I said, tab 4 kind of stuff. And then very few people, like maybe 1 or 2 people, honestly said, I don't bother with it. I don't have the time. Unless I have a problem, I don't really look at it because I have other things to worry about. Housekeepers showing up, front desk being, whatever. So it was kind of interesting that a company has progressively looked at it and say, we got to do this better. We got to use the information better and make the information usable better. So I didn't know if anybody else.
The best clients that I have, they all look at the same data. They've defined what the most important lead indicators are, the KPIs are that matter to everyone, and they all measure themselves on the same scoreboard. And it's not just data that they're looking at the end of the month. They're looking at it as it goes to indicate how they're performing real time. So I think it's important to pull data in from all these different sources. So revenue managers aren't just looking at star reports and stuff like that. They're also looking at, source data and the marketing data and pulling in that so you can see the three-dimensional data. Like a great example of that is, we see situations where the marketing team are getting really frustrated because their conversion rate on the website's dropping, and the rate management team are getting really excited because they're maximizing their third-party channels, the OTAs, and then you find out there's a cause and effect there, right? Because your rate parity's off, or because you're doing something different, it's driving more demand to one channel, but it's actually costing you on the other side. So I think it's really, really important that you're all looking at the same data and you're looking at cross-dimensional data as well.
Well, and cross-dimensional data is hard for these hotels because a lot of times they're pulling this stuff out as CSV files or something like that and trying to import it into, Excel or something and it doesn't, Excel is really good at 2-dimensional. You can build some really cool 3-dimensional, but they don't have the tool. I look at it as they have several problems. One is, in many cases, they just have crappy data. Right? I mean, it's just,
this is true.
It's duplicated. There are gaps. There's just all sorts of problems with the raw data, and then or even formatting. Right? They'll pull CSV files and something's just not formatted right, and the fields are screwed up or off by. And who knows if you don't look at the source data, and if they're just looking at some sort of dashboard, they just go, oh yeah, here's where they go, and you don't realize, hey, a third of the fields stopped working because maybe somebody changed the data format or some interface, API changed or God knows what, and they're hosed. right?
Yeah.
So the data is bad, and then they don't have a platform to go look at it. Is number two. And then number three, the actual reports that they're producing. I always look at them, the TPS report from Office Space. I mean, it's like they need the TPS report.
Yeah.
And they don't know how this stuff's built. They don't know what they use it for, but it has to come out. And by God, it better be on the general manager's desk by whatever time in the morning, or you'll lose your job. So,
well, and something else I discovered out of this, and this is where a value proposition of consulting. I mean, as consultants, we often get rude about the fact is like why you're bringing in somebody that you should already have internally capable of doing this. And sometimes it's an outside objectivity that is best suited to get these answers, because you're not politically motivated, you're not sandboxed, you don't have an internal agenda, you're there to provide value. And so in this process of me working through this, what do we need to reconstruct this internal reporting process to? I get to ask the questions that don't normally get asked, which is, what does this data mean to you? By asking specifically, here's your web traffic. Okay, well, what does this number mean? And oftentimes, so many people have allowed it to pass within the meetings they've been in because they don't understand it, but they're not wanting to admit that they don't understand it. So they'll do the head nod or the perfunctory understanding, and actually asking them, and for them to be feeling comfortable enough to honestly say, I have no freaking idea. I don't know what that means. I've been asked that before, and as long as it's green and not red, or up instead of down, I'm okay. And it really, what's come out of this, and what I'm telling this particular client in specificity is you need an education program that is non-invasive, that is helpful and supportive, and not judgment or critical as to their lack or willingness to understand stuff. If you implement that process, you're going to have people that are going to begin to use this data better. We can put lipstick on this pig, and we can make a better process and better reports, and they look better, and there's more implementation and more automation and everything else. But if they're still not getting used, you're really just sending me a check. You know, so it's kind of interesting to find out that there are. But by the same token, I've also found that there's some incredibly brilliant people that read data in very unique ways, because they see it in a way that was never instructed, so they interpret it the way that they think, and some of it's very insightful. I mean, you're sitting going, wow, I never thought of that, so
it can be really good, but it can also be dangerous, right? Because people are looking for confirmation bias or affirmation in what they're doing, right? So I had a situation recently where a client brought us in because they were having some cross-domain tracking issues, and we've gotten really good at fixing that for a lot of folks, and I think word's getting out. So we were looking at their data, and we were asking them about how, how's the year gone? They're like, great, our website conversion rate is phenomenal. We just switched to Navis this year for phone tracking, and it's done really well. It's really helping us. Our online bookings are through the roof. So we start looking through their data, and we start noticing there's a really high conversion rate in a couple of destinations, one of which was Bend, Oregon, which is where Navis is based. And they were using Navis as the call center, and Navis was logging in through their website and booking. And you see there was the places that Navis had their call centers, all of them were using it, and there's 3 or 4 locations all had like a 10-20% conversion rate, which was warping all of their data, showing so they're looking at this data thinking they're doing a great job. All the decisions they're making have really paid off this year, but it was complete nonsense data because you weren't comparing apples to apples year over year. You had data in there that shouldn't have been in there. Should have been completely omitted. So back to what Robert said, you've got to make sure your data is accurate at the very beginning. It doesn't cost a lot to have it audited once a year to make sure the data sources are still the data sources you want, that there's no erroneous data in there, things like that. Because they're making decisions based on this data that makes
financial decisions. Yes. And it's funny, maybe because it gives us back a few years, but before you did start doing IP isolations, when you're first getting analytics off a website, and they're like, man, there's so many people that are right in the city going to our website. And it's like, you do know that when you log into the Wi-Fi, it goes to your homepage on your website, and unless you isolate
still
the IP,
all the time. Still catch it.
It's amazing. But to that point, yes, it is. You brought up a cross-channel GTM shell tagging. It changes so much so often. I hadn't been in there to actually hands-on on the keyboard do some stuff until recently for something, and there were so many things that used to be even just 3-4 months ago you had to hard code it. Now there's so much click and make. I mean, it's just like boom, bang.
Developers barely touch the analytics integration now.
Oh my God,
it's all done by our analytics team. It used to be a real collaboration between developers who were going in code line by line, looking at what elements to track, and now we just create like a completely transparent data layer, and the analysts who know the data better are building out what's being captured.
It's crazy.
Way better.
Sure. I mean, there was one instance where we had to put it onto a website quickly, and I'm like, oh man, especially because their form fill they had 8 steps in the process, and so each step wanted to be correlated to its own value proposition, blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, oh crap, GTM, I got to do that. And then I'm sitting there going, shh. And then I get in there, and fortunately I had somebody that knew it better than I did that was ahead of me on it. And it's like, no, you just click this, put this, we drop this value, but I'm like, holy crap, where'd this stuff come from? I mean, it's just like, wow, click and play, variations, channels, boom, boom, boom. You know, it's just it's wonderful what can be done now. So
yeah, I agree. I think GTM for us is probably the biggest change in the last 12 months for our company. We were kind of dabbling with it before, but we really spent a lot of time investing in understanding the power of it, and it's fundamentally changed how we build our analytics and how we track everything. And we're tracking a lot more than we ever were, which is great.
Okay, just to be on a geeky side real quick, that's not necessarily hospitality related, but indicative of something that's probably eventually going to happen. I am envious that Google Pixel can put stormtroopers on AI. And my Apple
you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
And Stranger Things characters, and it's pretty amazing.
It is. I mean, it makes me jealous of my Apple device, but
And the most amazing thing about it versus Apple is because I don't have the new Pixel 2. I have the old Pixel, and it still works on last year's model. And it works on a Nexus 5P, which was the model the year before. Very, very un-Apple-like.
That is un-Apple. Did you see the article that came out? I read it this morning. I don't know when it came out, but Apple finally confirmed that they're updating the OS to slow down older devices. Now, the reasoning behind that seems somewhat legitimate, right? Because as batteries age, they can't handle as much. Seems, maybe.
Yeah, so they're really, really looking at sustaining the same battery life as opposed to the performance.
So
I'm not buying it.
But from the consumer perspective, the fact that you've always thought that your phone gets slower with time and then you have to update, absolutely that is what's happening. And it's being done by Apple on purpose. Whether it's for that intent or not, you could debate, but the fact that it is happening is being confirmed. And
the ironic comparison to this, and this came out of a BuzzFeed article, was that the battery is supposed to be at least 10,000 charges. And if you and that's 10,000 full charges. So incrementality is not necessarily calculated into that process. If you math that out, you're 3 to 4 years out minimum before battery degradation is definable by measurement. And yet this software was updating itself in that after 18 to 24 months, it would begin to degrade the speed function down. And it's kind of like, so you're actually slowing down the phone before the problem that you said it's fixing for is actually occurring. That to me is what catches it. That it's like, come on, Apple. I mean, I want the new phone because I think it's better and I like it and so forth, but you don't have to force me into that conversation by making the performance issue actually be a reality. So I was going to
upgrade every 2 years regardless, because you know, just because. But I think there's a lot of folks that are going to be very unhappy about this. We haven't heard the last of it. There's going to be I don't think the mainstream media has really picked up on it quite yet, but I think over the next week or two, I think it could be a big backlash.
Yeah, it could be, because
No, I was going to say I posted in the notes the Apple 1984 Super Bowl commercial, which I actually happened to post on YouTube a long time ago because it was a really clean cut that I'd had from years before. And there's 2.5 million views on it.
Wow.
But anyway, but look at that with the Big Brother and the text of what they're...
It's just not a good combination that when you've just introduced the most expensive phone ever produced,
which is outselling the 8, by the way.
Yes, and justifiably from a technology point of view, is it worth the money that's being spent? No, it's not. It should be. I mean, I remember when the S8 came out, and it was minimum $700 some odd if you want it. Now it's buy one get one, because the perishability of the product, as time evolves. But Apple is trying to establish that no, it's always going to be worth whatever price we say it is. And then you say, oh, hey, by the way, we're slowing down our older products to force you into that decision, and we're going to force you into the higher spend cycle. I mean, it's just a bad combination for them.
But Apple has such a fervent base. I mean, it is true loyalty. People are willing to pay, and that is how you measure loyalty. What premium are people willing to pay for that brand because they love it, right? And all of a sudden, any sort of digression from the norm, like, could you imagine if Samsung had done something like that, or even Google? I mean, it would have been pitchforks and torches. I mean, just
But I think it goes beyond loyalty. I think it's about a sense of belonging, and it's about our tribes, right? If I look at my wife and all her friends, they all have Apple devices. So when they're communicating on mass text, SMS, it's really, Apple Messenger. So it's blue. There's a deliberateness to Apple saying that when you're on an Apple device, it's blue. When you're on a non-Apple device, it's green. It's the same mentality as why they've got these animojis now with the X. It's like someone that has that. It's a status thing. You belong to an exclusive club. So it's I don't even think it's really about loyalty to Apple. It's more about status of who I am and belonging to that.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Scott Galloway, I think I mentioned this a couple times on the show. The NYU professor does a great thing. He goes, you kind of move down the torso, and Google is your brain, right? Because it knows it is God, right? You ask it a question, it delivers answers for you. It's like Facebook is the heart. Right, it's kind of like, hey, it's social things like,
or it's your butt, depending on who you are, I guess.
Is there any
on there a lot?
Amazon is your stomach, because it's all about consumption and how you consume and that sort of thing. And Apple are your genitals. It is, and his point, and he's been saying this for years. He's like, if I'm wearing the new Apple Watch or have the new iPhone, I am, this is like a mating signal, right? Where it's like, I am more affluent. I have this. I will be a better, all those sorts of things. He goes, that's going to do much better than your Samsung, whatever, right?
I have to disclaim that my wife looks at me as like, you spent how much for that phone? I don't think it worked for me the way that he was just described. But I mean, from a hospitality perspective, it's like, is there any brand anywhere in hospitality that has that kind of fierce loyalty attached to it?
Star Wars.
Star Wars, and also for that matter, Star Trek. I mean, really, if you think about it, some of the original groupies ever made were Trekkies. I mean, but from a hospitality, it's like there's some hotels that have done such a great job, independent or branded or not, that there's a fierce loyalty of repetition that the people will always, family generation to family generation.
Some people love Kimpton, Four Seasons, some of those.
Four Seasons, I think, falls in the category.
Smaller boutique ones.
I think Citizen M. I think Citizen M is getting
Citizen
there.
M's getting there. Yeah.
People like
them.
Really, truly enjoy
it's kind of parlays into actually one of our articles. So was it Tim that wrote the article about loyalty and the increasing expense of loyalty, right?
Yes.
Tim that wrote that.
Yeah, Tim writes everything. And just so you know, we can always. Yeah, we can always quote Tim for having been the source of it, because he probably was.
But I think that hospitality, at the point with some of the points he was making, I agree with 100%. Hospitality loyalty is fundamentally changing. It's becoming more expensive, and what it means is different. And I think there's a lot of reasons it's changed, but for me, part of it is friction has been removed to become a loyalty member of different things, right? So whereas it used to be kind of a little bit burdensome, but then you were in the game and then you were incentivized, and there's this human nature of getting rewarded for a certain behavior, right? So it worked really well. But now if you look at people, even though they're in a loyalty program with Marriott, they're probably also in the loyalty program with Hilton and X other brands as well. So loyalty has shifted. It's not about being loyal to one brand. It's about, what do I get out of staying with you? What does this relationship mean to me?
Transactional. It's transactional. It's gamification. Right. It's points. And the vast majority, for particularly the U.S. and the brand programs, are converting corporate travel spend. So what your employer is paying for you to travel, converting that into personal leisure travel benefit. That is the game, right? And that's why people get the credit card
around that, right? Exactly.
Oh yeah, exactly. And they're getting some sort of like, let's go do this and and play around with it. But that's not loyalty. That's just that's transactional type stuff. And I've always said that value, right? So if you can give a better price or things like that can drive transactions, but values, it's what that company represents. That values are what drive loyalty.
I agree. I feel like we need a new term because people are misusing loyalty, and it does mean about how do you incentivize someone to purchase you this time, not necessarily next time, but each and every time, right? So when next time comes, that's now this time. So how do you provide more value than your competition? How do you provide more value than the other channels on which they can purchase you? That's the new loyalty. I don't think there's a term that encompasses that yet, but I feel like we do.
It's the inverse of lifetime customer value, right? It's almost like that lifetime brand value of what is differentiation, what is that total? Because again, value is just, or it really comes down to, the quality of what what are you getting versus the cost, right? How do you create value?
Right. I have to say, I'm so glad you brought this up because I had this conversation. It's kind of interesting because in the dialogue I was having about this, exactly this, was the term monogamy. We equate loyalty with monogamy. And in fact, what the success of any idea of marketing loyalty is opportunistic value at the time that you can be that, whatever it is that you need to be to that potential guest. Not, as you said, Stuart, consistently, always. I mean, hotels have gone through this painful process of realization. It used to be, don't talk about any other restaurants outside of the hotel but your own, so that they don't know about them, so that you get the capture internally, which had the piss me off effect. As more and more information get out there, the more you realize that you missed the world's best burger joint down the road because your hotel was not wanting you to know that, hoping that you'd have their.
They weren't serving your best interest. They were serving their
interest. And we're approaching loyalty the same way historically and currently most places are, which is ignore everybody else. We're going to do everything for you, but then we put this carrot on a stick that's just a little bit past where we're comfortable getting it. And it's more about getting the data usable to say, hey, like you said, Stuart, right now I'm your best option, and this is what I'm willing to do to get it. And knowing that I may not be your next best option the next time you need something, but I want to keep in connection with you by the data I know about you to make myself available when I think I'm the best option again.
Right.
And then so Lauren is trading in kind of recursive one-night stands.
Believe me, this logic did not work with my wife. I'm not, I tried it. It just worked.
But much like one-night stands, if there's a great experience, you're probably going to look to extend that to a two-night stand and maybe a long-term relationship, right?
Maybe refer.
Or at least another Friday night when you're at the end of the night. Yeah.
So
Stuart is now going, forget the hospitality industry. We are going to start measuring net promoter scores here and change the industry.
That's funny.
But to that end, I mean, it goes back to data. Is using the data not under the mentality of, because we all know that data is like statistics. You can mold a number any way you want to, or use the data interpretively to validate, as you said, Stuart, your mind process, rather than looking at data and trying to interpret its value. All too many people went to the data to validate their perception.
Yeah.
And they're going to find that one piece. I mean, I always said there's two types of people. There's the person that will tell you the 99 things that they tried but didn't make it. And there's a person that did, just got it done for you. And if you want to know about the 105 things they tried to get it done, they'll tell you. But the idea is to succeed at doing it and by validating what they do versus not validating. But the idea is that if we take the data and use it under the construct that you're just saying, Stuart, is like, hey, let's make this work now. And if it's good for you and good for me, then hopefully there'll be another time with the data that I know about you now that there'll be another time, but it won't be in all the time. It'll be the next time. Right. And if we tailor our marketing loyalty relationships that way, we might find it to be more productive, I think.
I agree. And I think it works better for the consumer as well, because they're not tethered to one specific choice. We're in a point in society, I think, where 2017, there's been a lot of enlightenment, there's been a lot of mindfulness, a lot of awareness and discernment in society in general, right? And that transcends into consumerism as well. So people are going to be more discerning when they're making these decisions. So brands have to respect that. They have to think consumer first. We have to remember we're in the hospitality industry, and it's not about what's good for us and our brand, but it's about what's good for the consumer. The brands that adopt that mentality and embrace it, they're going to win. And the ones that are self-involved and try to figure out a new way to gamify the loyalty program of old, they're going to die because it's not going to work anymore. We're a different society today than we were 12 months ago. And we're going to be a much different society in another 12 months as well.
Well, and understanding those consumers, you have to realize that they're all different too, right? And they're using the hotels for so many different purposes. Is the key. I mean, they're in there for some social event. They're in there for one night, and they're never going to be to that city again. They have no interest. They didn't want to go there in the first place. They are forced to go do this against their will by their employer or whoever. Right?
You just validated the whole one night stand versus marriage thing. Okay, so just hear me out on this one. This was just actually you say this thing. It's like okay, so we're as a hotelier, we're like, hey, let's get married, and the person that's staying with is like, hey, I just wanted a little fun for one night.
Oh no, I've always equated it to hotel marketing is a lot of and people apply this to a lot of things. It's a lot like dating in high school. Sort of thing that people don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're picking up signals that are incorrect, and they got bad data, and they're not always making good decisions, and but
it's funny because here we are. Okay, so I'm staying at a hotel because it's functionally what I need to do, and the front desk is like, hey, sign up for our loyalty program, and if after 5 stays you do this and I'm up there going, 1, I'll never be back to this town again. 2, I'll probably never be staying with you again. 3, I have no idea because I haven't even stayed with you yet whether I even want to stay again. And you're trying to hit me up with, participate in our membership and so forth.
And they're like, save 10% or save up to 10%, right? You're going to save 2% by doing it. And they go, well, what the hell? Okay, I'll save.
And then the cost of it is I have to keep hearing you call me all the time afterwards when I don't want to talk to you.
So we will punish you for sending inane content of just,
So you give a bad phone number, 1-800 dial a prayer, you give them bad information that you'll never respond to them on. It's so funny that it's like, that's such a great analogy. Yeah, it does. It absolutely positively works.
The key is really how do you figure out why people are staying, and a lot of it is in the, and people don't want to hang up in the booking process and say, hey, if you answer a bunch of questions before they've booked, right? Because that just slows down the process and it can kill your conversion, right? But then it's kind of that post-booking email, the confirmation email. One of the key things is how do you get people to kind of say, yeah, here's what now that you've booked with us, that's great. We'd like to do special thing. We want to have you have a great stay. Can you answer a couple questions, or is there anything we can help you with, right? So they can opt into it. That works really well for certain properties, right? If they're major urban centers, if it's major orientation, weekend travel, things like that. But you'll get hotels who all of a sudden they get that process, and then they start to we haven't heard back from you. We need to know what, and it's like they don't want to tell you.
It's funny that you say this. Is like, don't you always wish there was an honesty in conversations? And we smile at the commercials that actually play against that. It's like what honestly should be said at those engagements, like meeting the parents for the first time or something like that. I think that's a funny commercial that's rolling around right now. And we do exactly the opposite. Here you are arriving at a hotel, and we're all about trying to get your information. And we know the value of our email. We've learned that from, unfortunately, spam. So we're not willing to give it up unless there's a value proposition to it. So even not having stayed at the hotel, hey, would you like to join our membership program? You get a free bottle of water if you do, and blah, 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 blah. And you're sitting there going, if I give this email, and I know I'm never going to be back, I'll get a free bottle of water, but I'm going to have to go over and just unsubscribe, which is extra effort I don't care about. And for some of my clients that have taken the thought process is for new first-time guests, especially from an OTA channel, which are flagged specifically for this, they're immediately upgraded into their second best membership value proposition. If there's a room upgrade capability, if there's a reward capability, if there's an incentive capability, they're offered it as a trial. Like, hey, let's let you enjoy the best we can offer you. Not the very best in the sense of that you are in a relationship with us, you're going to get the full marriage value, but you're going to get almost that much. You're going to get the up to that point. And it's kind of like, when you first meet somebody, if you first met somebody and the first thing they're talking about is, are you in the position to get married? You're not going to be like, hey, you know, I just was thinking you were cute and wanted to talk to you, and you're talking about marriage. You're going to step away.
Yeah, first date asking how many children.
How many children you want, right? Yeah, it's like,
if you show up on the first date with unexpected flowers or something like that, you're a lot more likely to get the second date, right? So it's not going for the kill, but it's doing things that improve the experience, make them
it special,
show that they're special, and don't ask the question. If you said, hey, on the first date, would you like some flowers? You know, probably not going to be as impactful, but if you just show up with them and surprise and delight them, it's going to happen. Yeah.
They're going to, why are you doing
exactly,
this? But that's the thing. These are relationships, just like human relationships.
So is that how you got your wife? Are you romantic? Are you that romantic, that flower guy that, you know, is that how it all works?
My first date with my wife was, I was wearing a Teletubbies t-shirt, you know, took her for an English roast and then a game of soccer. So I don't know if that was romantic, but she stuck around. Yeah, I was in college.
My first date with my wife was, I was actually going, I had 2 tickets to a Talking Heads concert because I was going to with her boss. And then he bagged out on me, and I said, well, you either need to give me the money for the ticket or give it to somebody else. And it wound up being my wife, which was great.
Wow.
So but that was my second. Oh, you love Talking Heads. I saw Talking Heads in January of 1978 in about 150-seat club.
Yeah, that was a good time. So I saw him in 82. But just to recount fun stories that ended up in marriage, my best friend and I were going to go to a Pink Floyd concert in Tampa. And we bought tickets early on, and we had great tickets. I mean, great. We weren't on the ground floor or anything like this. It was in the stadium, but we were in a really great location. And between then and when the concert was, I met a girl that he really wanted to impress, and he came to me and says, "Hey, Lauren, can I bring her and give her your ticket, and so that we can sit together, and I'll buy you another ticket?" And I'm like, at this point, it's late. The concert's just around the corner. I'm probably going to be up in the freaking nosebleed, but hey, it's my best friend, okay? And we watch out for best friends, so good luck. Take the ticket. So he gets me a ticket, and I didn't think, and I looked at it, and it's like I'm on the stadium floor. I'm like, oh, this is freaking awesome. Thank you, dude. So I walk up to the first level of the stadium floor, and I get waved past. I'm like, whoa, what? And then I go to the next section. I get waved past. I end up being in front of the stage, like 2 people back because it crowded up for the Pink Floyd concert. Best freaking concert of my entire life. He ended up marrying the girl that he brought, so it all worked out good.
That went in a different direction. I was expecting you were going to say you stole his girl. And
oh gosh, no, he ended up marrying her. So everything worked out perfect, and I had the most amazing experience at a concert I ever had in my life. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, tangent. Sorry.
And she passed that first test. She liked Pink Floyd, so he's like, "Okay, this is
exactly.
good."
Exactly. Yep. Actually, want to go for it. Yeah. Hey, on the data side of things, everything being cloud based, and that's one of the things for 2018 that's forecasted that as all this data acquisition is going on and so forth, it's not being housed in some local warehouse anymore. It's all cloud based.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. What about data insurance? I mean, honest to gosh, with everything that's going on with malware and all this other stuff that's going on, and the reason why I bring this up is, like, for instance, I'm actually looking at an insurance policy now that I'm handling more and more sensitive data as a business of getting insurance in case of breach. I mean, it's not that I have it handed to people, but I am handling confidential information, and I'm not harboring it, I'm not holding it, but I have cloud access to it, which is just as good as having it on a drive locally, because technically it can be pilfered via me. So other companies have that same concern. I mean, large companies, because as I deal with clients, obviously everybody wants to retain their own data. They're accumulating data. They're trying to use their data. They want to keep their data, and they're using the cloud to do it. Any conversations with anybody you know about that you're actually?
I'm surprised the industry's not talking more about GDPR. Honestly, I think it's going to have huge implications.
Guys in Europe are, but not over here.
Yeah, in America, it's barely talked about, and the challenge is it reaches here, because if you're dealing with data collected from a European Union citizen, then you're under that regulation. So, they're saying part of the mandate is you have to have a chief data officer, someone. It doesn't have to be a dedicated job title that you hire someone for, but someone within your organization has to have the role. They're responsible for data integrity, and in So we're looking at that hard, and who does it make sense, and how do we change our process? Much like we did when PCI came in, like we're going to have to change processes in how we're collecting, how we're using. We used to do a lot of webinars with other third-party vendors, and then we just all share their emails, and now we can't because we're like, well, what are you doing with that data that we collected?
Right.
We have to have them sign off to indemnify us. So you need to be careful with data. The penalties are huge, and especially with GDPR. I think it's up to 4% of worldwide gross turnover is the potential penalty for a breach. Right. So,
and also too, we've had a discussion on the show earlier too. Is that the access is that I know you all have done this. You go in and you're helping a client and you're being given accesses to things like analytics, AdWords, accounts, and so forth. And there's all this deadwood logins. Who are these people? And when you start asking the organization, most of the time they don't know. Other times it was residual connections of people within their internal structures no longer even with them. And you're sitting there going, you do know these people have admin access to your analytics or admin access to your paid account programs. Should they want to do something bad with them, you wouldn't be able to stop them. And
it's not even them. It's who knows what password they use that they used on other sites, and they get hacked.
Exactly. God
knows, right?
And then you start looking at those things, and then the other conversation we've had on the show. I know this because I was militant about this for a little while. Is the pass-through coding that is being given to vendors through your booking funnels,
and they're collecting data
and they have access to data. How are they handling your credit card information? Because they're in the funnel to be able to garner that data. Should they choose? Because what they do is say, "Here's my pixel. Can you put it on your tracking program or whatever?" And the client will take care of whatever needs to get done, and they put it on there. But they never ask the question, "What are you doing with that data?" Oh, we need that to be able to track for our measuring and billing, conversions and so forth. Yeah, but this is an open pixel. This is everything that's happening on that page. You can define data from.
Yeah, we've changed that process completely to avoid that. We've separated the credit card piece into its own iframe where no one else can touch that data. Perfect. We're sending it through like a Shift4 or some kind of processing, getting back a token. So the only thing any of these third parties have access to is a token, because it is a huge vulnerability. If you're doing that, if you have a booking process that has a credit card form embedded on the page where there's third-party scripts, you are outside of PCI compliance at that point.
Absolutely. Because you can't validate that they're not holding that data. Absolutely.
Correct. Unless you go and get every single one of those vendors to give you signed documentation that they're PCI compliant, that they're doing these things the right way, you are vulnerable at that point.
Yeah. I mean, you need to be touting that more, Stuart. Honest to God, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you've isolated because I mean, what I've done on the reverse of it is I've taken everybody on their open pixels off of them, and I've only defined their pixel data specifically as to what they need for the contract compliance.
Gotcha.
And I've made them do a sign off that they are following the proper procedures for data storage for them, and that they are explicitly held accountable should there ever be a breach. They are in the line of fire.
Yeah,
scares the crap out of them.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah, you do, and that it sorts out the real vendors from the fly-by-nights as well. Because
I was going to say you'll wind up having some. Yeah, you'll have some of them just go, "No, we can't. We don't do that."
Right, and it's like then you don't deserve the data.
Or the worst part, you may have people say, "Yeah, we do that," even though they don't. Right?
Yeah,
just to get the deal.
That's why you got to get it signed, right? You got to get it legally binding for sure.
Yeah, they need to be very specific. I have a very specific for them that they are held culpable and responsible for their access to that data. Because I mean, there's a lot of platforms that can't, as you brilliantly have done, isolate out the credit card payment information for compliance.
Oh, well, and that's what's happened with a lot of these that have now gone to single page, sites, right? Hey, everything's in here. It's a one-page booking. Isn't it simple? You can do all this stuff. It's like a lot of data on that, on that page. And if you've got a bunch of open pixels, it's like, it's again, it all comes down to the whole convenience versus security.
Always a trade-off.
Yep, you got to figure out where that goes. So
yeah. But in general, I think people need to respect any data they're collecting, any personal data, whether it's name, address. I'm not even talking about really sensitive stuff like credit cards and social security numbers, but just physical address, email address, stuff like that. You've got to treat that like you would treat your own data. You don't want to give that out to. If some random dude came up to you on the street and asked you for your home address, would you give it to them? No, you wouldn't. So treat every person's data with that much respect.
Right. Well, wait, and one minor correction to what Stuart said. you don't want to say treat it the way you would treat your own data because you're assuming some of these people. I mean, there's again the number of people who post like public stuff on.
Well, that's true.
On Facebook, you'll see things where it's like, yeah, my damn security system isn't working. I hate it. Going on
even the news locally here, somebody posted on Facebook. Somebody it was in Florida, I think. Somebody lost their monkey. Somebody stole their monkey. This is literally, I'm not making it up, because they were.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
He went through all this trouble to buy this very expensive Reese monkey or something like this, and of course on Facebook posting all their love and affection and so forth, and then posted they were out having dinner somewhere, and somebody literally broke in and stole the monkey.
That's
and
terrible.
I'm laughing. I'm sad. Yes,
Was it this one?
Dude,
That's
monkey!
it. Oh my God! And Stuart had it stuffed.
Stuart,
you monster!
Animal, you.
That's my Monkey of the Day award. It's given out to employees when they do something really monkeyfied. So if they do like a catastrophic silly thing, they get the monkey.
So it's permanently on your desk. It's what you're saying. It's permanently on your desk.
No, honestly, I'm going to give it out in about a month, which is pretty good. So
it's time for the
we have
monkey
a
to
rule
travel.
internally where we say you're allowed to make any mistake one time, like
one time.
no consequences to making mistakes in it, because we take a lot of risks. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. One, you have to fix the mistake that you created, not rely on other people to fix it, because you'll learn from it. And two, don't ever repeat the same mistake twice.
Right. Well, that's very true. Whenever there's a problem,
he has his medieval torture device gallery, and the one off.
The thumb screws come out. The thumb screws come out. No.
Would you prefer the thumb screws to rack? Yeah.
When someone's had that monkey on their desk, they don't do it again.
It's true. Yeah. Anytime I always used to tell people in the hotels, like, look, anytime there's a problem that happens, it's actually two problems: the immediate problem to get fixed, and the problem to never have a repeat. And I would also tell them never use the same solution the next time the same situation comes up, because there will always be a time that simply, if you get crux by using the same solution all the time, and especially when for front desk people, there'll be a time where that solution doesn't work and you don't have an option. So always find another creative way to create another solution so that you have a toolkit. So as one doesn't work, another one is available because you know that that you've tried it before. So to that end, the problem solutions, don't repeat.
And there are lots of creative. I think before we mentioned, lots of creative ways to do things, to always look at and not just get saddled into this one process. I think it was probably the Recode Decode podcast with Kara Swisher. She had a woman from who was it? It was Spark Capital, Megan Quinn, who was one of very, very early Google employees and one of the few female VCs, and really invested a lot, super smart, invested in tons of companies. But she said one of the questions back when Larry and Sergey were interviewing people, right? Because it used to be you'd have everybody at Google interviewed every candidate when they were really small. And so, or you'd go through like 18 interviews. The question that Larry and Sergey only had one question for her, and it was, how would you organize a bookshelf? That was it. And, because you could do it by what size of books, alphabetically, by color. There are tons of ways you can do a decimal system, whatever. But that was their key question. They wanted to understand, and I don't think there was a right or wrong answer.
Yeah, they're looking
they said
how you go through
they said by color you're out, sort of thing. It was why, what's your process to go do that? And
it's funny. This is just, and this is again a tangent down a rabbit hole. Danny Sullivan now working for Google just doesn't run right with me, because Danny Sullivan used to be, in my mind, the outside advocate of how to critique Google, and now he is Google, and I feel like there's no. I mean, I find him brilliant in the sense that SEO, as he grew up with it, and he was the vanguard in so many things of it, is no longer what it was before. It's a different process. It's almost it's like having power. It's a mandated requirement to just operate business wise. It's no longer the innovative how to outsmart it. But the fact that he's actually working for Google, just, I don't know, it's just weird. It just seems like, wow, what happened to being on the outside pointing a finger when you're in the inside now smiling away?
Probably had something to do with a check.
Yeah, I'm sure they
regularly for him, and it's like, well, yeah.
Well, he's also, I mean, there's less and less to talk about with SEO, because more SEO, especially with AI, it's not about discovery of end arounds and go arounds and so forth. It's a process. It's now more of literally a process of methodology and integration. It's usability.
Yeah. It's running a good business and doing the right practices, and SEO is going to occur. I mean, there's still, I think it's a little disservice.
Website that the navigation makes sense and it's tagged properly, and you can tell what the hell that page is about, and and maybe link to similar pages and things like that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's changed fundamentally. I mean, it's still a service that we offer, and people, every other month I feel like someone's writing an article that says SEO is dead, but it's just
have been since 2008.
It's changed. Right, and there's technical, tactical things you have to do, and it pays to pay attention to things like Search Console to make sure you're not having errors, and it pays to put schema.org on your site and do all these technical things. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, do you have a good business? Is your website a great experience? Are you doing things right by the consumer? If you're doing all those things, you're going to earn links, which is part of it. And then the RankBrain algorithm is going to see all these positive signals, and you're going to rank well.
And as long as there's so many people that still don't do the fundamentals correctly, there's always going to be business to be done for SEO. Because unfortunately, just like we talked about, people having access still to sensitive accounts that they shouldn't, and data still being vulnerable to be able to be breached. It's because there's still too many people that don't know the basics.
You can still game to a degree, and we see from time to time these pretenders show up on the organic ranking for certain keywords, and then we'll kind of monitor them and see, okay, they're adding 10,000 links a week. Google just figures that stuff out faster than it used to. So you might get that short-term boost, but then you're going to be penalized for a longer time than you ever have been, and it's going to happen faster.
Overcoming those penalties is not.
It's not fun. It's not fun at all.
And now also too, I mean, the wars of who does what is over. The lines have been drawn. The marginal line is there, and so now Google has less to share with us, because it's really we're marching in line. We don't have an option outside of the parameters that we're in anymore. So we ours is just simply a compliance and a methodology process at this point. Play by the rules, and you
see, Google came out this week and said, so the interstitial ad formats and pop-ups on mobile sites have been a no-no since like January, and now I think February 15th is the date where they're going to start doing the same for desktop websites as well. So pay attention to that. It's a big deal.
Right.
All those first-time visitor pop-ups could get you in trouble. So
and again, just again, listening to what Google has to say, and with a lot of these guys, the classic subdirectory versus subdomain discussion, and it's like, subdomains are fine, but you better do a few things, tying things in, on the Webmaster Tools console, where you've got to do that stuff right. Yeah, and if you don't do that, you are hosed. And the same thing with all these guys who are using the third-party search or third-party booking engines, where they've got all this stuff, and then all of a sudden it goes poof and goes away. And some of those third-party booking engines are in there doing SEO for their benefit, not necessarily your benefit, sort of thing.
The subdomain conversation is a little bit like the Betamax versus VHS for me. I backed the subdomain, thinking that was the route to go back in the day when it was still a discussion. That pony didn't work. I thought I had the end-all be-all solution by recreating websites under a subdomain process. No, Betamax didn't win. VHS did. Subfolders won, and subdomains didn't.
Well, but you can't. It's just harder with the subdomains, right?
Yeah, you can get around it.
Google doesn't really care. It's just a lot more effort.
And to be fair, there are aspects of subdomains that are very viable and usable based on categorizations of what they're used for. But as a structure of data dissemination and indexing and so forth, that doesn't win. It is, to your point, way too complicated to try to succeed at that point.
It is. On a very simple level, just for folks watching, when you're dealing with a subdomain, Google technically sees that as a completely different site, right? So unless you connect the two, canonicalize them, they're going to treat it. So if you get a link to your main domain, a link to your subdomain, they're not accumulating together, right? Whereas 2 links to the same site is more valuable than 1 link to each of these separate sites. So that's why subfolders generally are more beneficial in the long term.
And even counting the traffic where people wind up getting dumped.
Correct. Yes.
There's so many
time spent on site, all these other things that go into RankBrain now. Yeah.
And just to keep things on a highly geeky level with this, I have to share something from an insight of one of the clients, is that the people that were running it prior to me taking it over were very proud of their marketing strategy for these properties by starting and stopping ad campaigns that were based on dynamic page generations. And there's a lot that could just laugh at, but because it's just so frustrating to think that they thought this was a good idea. When you do ad campaigns, there's a perennial value by keeping a branding value, evergreen content out there to keep your indexing correct with your advertising, so that your cost per acquisition, your cost per click, whatever measurabilities you want to use with it, maintain a low cost factor, because you've been indexed correctly to be correlated to the ad. Starting and stopping campaigns, cold starting them, is one of the worst ways of trying to jump back in, because as AI is integrated with almost all ad campaign, well, they are with all ad campaigning done in the world now, that it doesn't know who it is for what it is, so it's going to charge you the maximum amount until it understands the relationship value of your content of the ad in relationship to what you're offering to the connection to that ad. And if you don't keep something out there that you're connecting to it on a regular basis, you're always starting at the highest cost factor associated with it until it begins to index itself down. And to think that this agency, and there's other agencies out there like this, or other people doing this like this, think, oh, we'll turn that campaign on now, and it's cold starting it and then shutting it off, and then the worst of connecting it to data that isn't even indexed even makes it doubly worse.
So that keeping that in mind, we come across a lot of folks that come to us and say, we want you to take over AdWords management for us, right? And we're like, great, let's get access to your AdWords account. Oh no, wait, your other agency owns that account, your account. So now we have to start from scratch. All the equity you built up is zero.
Gone.
So when you're contracting with an agency, just like the website should not be proprietary, you should own your website. Every account, the Google Analytics accounts, the AdWords accounts, everything you do should be owned by you, not by that third party. So that if any point in the future you want to part ways, you have control over.
And that goes to accounts associated with your distributions. If you're going to do meta search, if you're going to do programmatic advertising, it's your account, and you give access to whom you want to facilitate with. I can't even begin to say, I can point fingers at a lot of agencies that, we'll take care of everything for you, and it's all under their umbrella. And then when you do the piss me off with them, they make you go dark. No analytics.
We have a client recently that was with one of the large agencies, 4-letter agency, that was using the agency's Omniture account, didn't have Google Analytics on their site ever, lost the Omniture account. They have zero historical data for their website. Zero.
Ouch.
And it's a leverage point. It's a point of extortion in some ways. Like if you leave me, you lose everything. So you're going to pay what I'm telling you to pay so that you don't lose everything. And if you're in that positions of proprietary relationships, get out of them and get onto your own ownerships.
But this is the tradition of the hospitality industry between management contracts and brand relationships and property management system deals. I mean, the number of things that I've been involved with where it's like, oh my God, this was pretty early on. We were helping doing a consulting project converting a property at JFK Airport from a Marriott to an independent, right? Because these guys actually had, the property was riddled with asbestos and it had to be completely redone. And it was really just a horrible, horrible situation. So, but they needed to get Marriott out of that. Right. I mean, they needed to, we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff. We can't keep paying Marriott for let's go. And again, all of a sudden, all that data wasn't theirs. Right. Every arriving reservation, and you kind of look at it with Marriott and you can see Marriott's perspective. They're like, hey, you aren't going to be a Marriott. We are now going to send an email to everybody who's booked and tell them you aren't going to be a Marriott anymore here are the 5 alternatives you can use instead, right? Offering special rate to accommodate, all sorts of things like that. And you kind of go, ooh, that's not, but again, Marriott kind of went behind this isn't going, we don't know what the standards are. We want people to be aware of it because they're going to be expecting a Marriott. They're going to show up. It's not. They're going to be pissed off. They're going to tell us. So okay, kind of understandable. But then same thing, all group sales siphoned out to other properties. I mean, just Same thing, and left these guys with a shell and no business to continue forward. Same thing with property management systems. People want to go shut them down, or they try to get their data out, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, or even just do an interface to somebody they don't like. It's like, that's impossible. Well, no, you have the API that does this. It's actually all that data. Can you give it? Oh, that's going to be $35,000 to be custom work to go do it. So,
and it's a shame that the decision processes early on are being done by people that don't
agree
understand
100% with all that.
It is.
We live in a crazy world. We with Fuel's thinking, I want to run this by you live on the show, right? So we're thinking of kind of changing our brand positioning a little bit. And we're so fed up with the traditional agencies. We kind of want to go, and Lauren, you've been the champion for this, like unagencying for a long time. Like you don't need the agency. Like we want to kind of position Fuel as that actual agency that is the unagency, because we do things completely differently than other agencies. There's no long-term commitments. You own everything. It's everything's month to month and based on what you need that month. You're not locked into just SEO or just PPC, and it's not homogenized. It's personalized. So, we have a weird identity crisis because we're. Does this
mean we can't talk to each other now because we're going to be competing with each other? Like,
Stuart, you're messing up your exit. Getting a big multiple on your exit there is not going to be good.
I tell you what, though,
they're not going to be pumping in money, so you can pump and dump here. So I don't know.
I got to tell you, it is very liberating doing it from that methodology, because if you're getting into the relationship with an exit strategy already in place, where you're trying to work yourself out of a position, it adds such an incredible leverage of validation in your conversations with internal teams, because whenever they start looking at you and discrediting or trying to discredit because you're obviously disagreeing with them on something, and you're looking at it as like, look, I'm here because it's to the benefit of your organization, period. There's no sandbox, no agenda. There's no lingering aspiration value. It is get in, get it done, get you internalized, get you creating your own resources and solutions, giving you the resources that you need in that process of transition, and give you the benefit of control, and then use me in whatever terms afterwards to be that white-bearded person on the hill that you go ask the question that nobody else has an answer to. Then I'll move on, because God knows there's enough people in the world that need that next Mary Poppins. Okay, that you don't need to keep that. How long can we keep the relationship going doing BS SEO monthly billing? When you're not been touching SEO except for glancing and make sure the reports are correct.
But that is the business model for most of these, is to get into some form of recurring payment stream with a very junior person handling a lot of accounts.
Well, that's it. Right? That's monetization.
That's how programmatic advertising has become so prevalent in the last 12 months, because people think they need it. The data they're looking at is controlled by the vendors in its vanity metrics that justify nonsense data. And agencies make a ton of money from it. Because
your impressions went up 12%. Oh my gosh, that's great.
Exactly. It's nonsense. We really rely. Everyone that comes to us says, I need a proposal for this and this and this and programmatic. And everyone says, everyone we tell, we can do this for you, but here are 20 reasons why you'd be better off taking that money and putting it in this other thing.
Yes. And so, do the basics first, the block and tackle. We've had that conversation on the show many, many times. It's like, do the block and tackle right. And honestly, it goes back to one of our most core discussions, which is what's benefiting your guest relationship at this point. First and foremost, what is benefiting your relationship with the people that are giving you the money that you're giving us? And then we build from it what you need to keep that correlation high for you. But it's very true. It's funny that it is deconstructing mentalities, because everything that people buzzword think is a value proposition or recordable value has been fed to them by the very people that are sustaining why it's important to be paid to do that.
Yeah, self-justification.
The SEO stuff just blows my mind, where companies are paying retainerships for SEO for hotels, unless you're in the construct of refining a website, redeveloping it, or continuing adaptation. There is no perpetual SEO. There is perpetual maintenance, but there is no perpetual SEO in the sense of that.
Because we do that. We have retainers this month to month, but what we're doing each month can vary, right?
Because that's different. That is different. It's
not like we got this homogenized. All our clients get this every month. Sometimes we're creating content, sometimes we're doing audits, and sometimes we.
But the transparency you're probably giving though is there. See, exactly. The people I'm talking about is
we're doing. we tell them upfront what we're going to be working on the next 60 days and what we worked on for the last 30 days. So they always know the specifics of where their budget's going. And your budget this month, the next month might change based on your needs because, hey, Google just changed something and now HTTPS is really important. So we need to fix that on your site. Or this new schema tag came out and we need to put that on your site. Or we need these articles because your analytics is telling us that people are looking for this stuff. So, I think you can invest in SEO on an ongoing basis, but it's not some homogenized nonsense.
And you made a really good point with the schema tags, with things like events and things like that going on at your hotel. You've got whatever live entertainment in your bar or something like. Well, hey, get little tags about that. Yes, you've got a schedule of that. You've got people.
To clarify, because it is, you're absolutely right, Stuart. It is exactly opposite of what you're describing, what you do compared to what I'm saying or complaining about. When you go to these agencies I'm referring to as such, and you say, well, what am I paying this? Meta tags and H1 references. And how many times do you do that? Okay. And yes, SEO is a lot of upfront, and then you want the residual payoff by perpetually charging for what you spend a lot of aggressive early time on. I understand the monetization model for it. And to your point, Robert, as soon as they get your account, I always tell my client, people that I'm talking to, is like, when somebody's pitching you something, have those people pitching you raise their hand that they're going to continue to work on your account directly once you sign the contract. You will not find a single person in that room raising their hand. They'll say they'll monitor it, they'll oversee it, they'll review it. But as soon as they get that contract, it's coming back to junior grade land, because that's the only way they can monetize it, because they're the most expensive commodity in their agency. They need to bring down your account to standardization and repetition to a junior person they're paying less money per hour for. And to what you're doing, Stuart, is like you're saying, no, you're going to get our best all the time when you need what you need, and that's all you're going to be paying for. That's what I call the agency model.
And that's the business model for the monetization of the account management resources. Then you have the monetization of the development resources. So a lot of these guys get one, client or the whale or whatever who goes and they need custom web development, things like that. They do this and they rebuild their website, and then they turn it into a template and try to sell it to everybody else, right? And it's just
I told one client
same deal. And those are the fundamental business models for a lot of these large large groups. I mean, it's
a client called me a month after a month. I talked to him at the beginning of the month and so forth. And at the end of the month, he says, "Hey, I didn't get an invoice from you." He says, "Yeah, I didn't do anything." He's like, "What?" I said, "No, I just checked your reporting and so forth. I want to make sure you're still on track." But I mean, that was all of 20 minutes of my time, and so forth. So I just want to make sure everything was good. We had everything was running the way it's supposed to be. He's like, "So what?" And it's like, "No, dude, everything's good. Unless you see something that I missed, and I apologize, and I'll jump right on it." He said, "No, I just missed your invoice." I'm like, "There wasn't an invoice because I didn't do it."
You need to negotiate a monthly minimum for access to you.
But you know what? I mean, this is the
escalator clause every year.
Escalator clause. By the same token, there's plenty of other times, and a little bit to this point. A new client I brought on, I use a platform called Teamwork, which is a great platform for project management. And I immediately make the client accessible to it for transparency. They see all the projects, the tasks, the timelines, who's on it, and so forth and so on. And they're going through. It's like, wait a minute, I can see what time you're posting. Yeah, I'm not here to buffer you with stuff. I'll put in and we'll discuss. And then when it comes to the next month, I'll talk to you about what I expect to be tasks that need to be done, the project, anticipated hours, so forth and so on. And you see that everything that's posted towards it, it's explained what the time was spent for it. And they're like, never done this with anybody before. It's like, well, welcome to the new way of things, I guess, because that way you're paying for what you're getting and you're not paying for crap that nobody's explaining to you, And by the same token, there's the excess. It's like, hey, dude, that's going to be this many hours. Well, that's a lot of hours. Okay, then it either doesn't get done or it gets done in a longer time cycle, but that's the time it's going to take to do it. But that truth and honesty is a lot easier discussion to have with them at that point, because they know that you're not making this stuff up. It really is the projected amount of time necessary for it. So, Stuart, I'm welcome. I'm happy, man. That's good. I think it's awesome, because I know that you would always be transparent with it and always do what work needed to be done. But to think that you're not trying to corner the agency model in that sense is good news.
But I think we have a theme now, though, for the show, because we were talking about the customer relationship before, and now it's kind of the B2B. It's the same thing. It's this transparency and saying, here's what's going on. Here's what we're going to do, even from a B2C perspective. Here's what we're going to do for you. Here are the expectations, and we're in this for you, so you get the best results, right? And that's kind of maybe that's my wish for this year, that's how the industry winds up working in terms of all the vendor relationships and the customer relationships.
Nice. God bless everyone.
Exactly. And not just here's what we're going to do for ourselves to maximize our benefit at the cost of these suckers, right? That they're working. We're going to go do that, right? Which unfortunately is too far too prevalent.
Everyone watching right now is screaming at us saying, "You guys are a bunch of utopian,
idealistic." It's probably in the background of he sees. It's like, what the hell are you guys talking about? See, I don't get on the show one freaking week, and you guys are go off into to utopia land.
We're lacking all the cynicism that Ed brings to the show.
That's right.
But that approach is contrary to getting a great valuation. If you're running an organization, I mean, it is how do you maximize your monetization and your margins and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of it winds up being, here's where we do shortcuts and we get the benefit of it. And you know what, the client, and in many cases, it's the client doesn't know any different. We have superior processes and checks and balances, and we don't need a senior person to do it because our processes work so well, and we've got such great analytics we can do. And again, there are some organizations that can be set up like that.
I think
not a lot in the hospitality industry in the digital marketing realm.
Right. I think in some ways I've also helped change or at least influence some cultures with some of this process, because I had one person in particular. I was doing a lot of work specifically to the tasks that they needed, and he made this kind of contrite comment because he knows that I dialogued with his superiors and their superiors directly. He says, "Imagine you want to tell them as soon as we're done that you're able to get this done." I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, this is a big deal. This is great, and you did it." And I said, "Yeah, and I also told you it was done because you asked me to do it." And I said, "If you don't care who gets the credit, just imagine all the things you can get done." And he paused, and it's like, you're in their environment. You get a payroll check from them. So wouldn't it be better suited that you were the facilitator of the solution? And I'm not saying take away the idea of how it was done. I'm not asking you to lie, but there's no reason for me to go run off and revalidate my value proposition. They know, they're smart. They know that we worked on this, but you're the one that created the need for this to be solved. And after that point, it was kind of weird because our conversation shifted. He was a lot more open about challenges than he was before that conversation, because he was willing to realize that I wasn't looking to exploit the opportunities to my benefit, but rather just to simply solve the problems as presented. And it was kind of a good feeling, because for me, it's like, look, if they told me the next day that I don't have a job with them, that I knew that walking in the door. So it's okay. Right. I don't need to keep going and look what I fixed. It's like, look, if you don't find value in what I'm doing and the transparency that I offer for you to know that, then I haven't done the job correctly, and you need to find somebody else anyway. So,
which is refreshing, because a lot of groups in that would say, here's their retainer of X amount of money, and you start looking and going, hey, if you can dump that person on your payroll, right, and eliminate them, give it to me, I can do it more efficiently, and you're going to save money, right? And you don't have to, you don't have to worry about payroll taxes and all the benefit load and things like that. Right. It's just me, and it's part of this, and isn't it? And I mean, there are a lot of people, a lot of consultants who work on that basis, right? It's kind of like, here's the labor, and not necessarily doing a better job for the customer, because again, the guy there is in the environment and knows he's in the front lines on where you don't have that information. You aren't in the hotel understanding all of that. You're just getting people to tell you stuff.
Well, and then one of the other benefits to the now adopted Stewart strategy is when you're in these conversations, there's a lot of
the best form of flattery, Lauren.
I find a lot
Stewart's
of times
going to call it he's going to call it the SS. I think that's you're figuring out the branding of what you do, the Stewart strategy. There you go.
The Stewart strategy. But I find, and this is funny. When one of my clients, I was talking to the media buyer and the person that was handling the paid advertisement and so forth, and I said, so what information are you getting from your organic team, your content team, your SEO team, as to what they're doing? Oh, I don't listen to them. I don't care what they're doing. I'm out to make ads to make money. I'm like, You know how dysfunctional that sounds, right?
Yeah,
I mean, literally, they're the guiding force to what you should be doing. You're the augmentation and the amplification of their process, and they're following the process of revenue management because that's the horizon line. The fact that you are proudly disconnected from them is completely way out, and it's great that you're not staying with the company. Good luck with whatever you're doing. But the enjoyment of doing the strategies we're talking about is when I'm talking to that other department, their skepticism of my intent is easy to brush off because you're like, look, you're the guiding force to what I'm being responsible for to do. So what is it you're doing so I can make it better for you? And being not in the political infrastructure of that company allows you, especially with an exit strategy, that I'm not trying to retain my value there, where they're looking at going, so this guy is not, he's not trying to self-preserve his income. He's not trying to garner power internally. He's legitimately trying to solve a dysfunction that we have. Okay, I'll buy in. It does. It changes the dynamic of conversations that you actually start facilitating collaboration that somebody internally can't do because internally there's still self-preservation involved. I don't know if you ever, but there's a great movie called The Replacements. It's a football movie with Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman. And the ideology of it is that these scab players that were from a football strike movie, it took on a team and they're getting to the playoffs because of their dysfunctionality. And at the end, they were playing the previous Super Bowl team that came back together because the strike ended, and they were getting their butts beat. And the motivation statement at the end of it is like the one thing they don't understand is that you are very dangerous people because for you there is no tomorrow. So you can do everything you need to do today because tomorrow you're not going to be able to do it. And that's kind of the mentality of what we're doing now is from a consulting point of view is that I'm not here for the tomorrow question. I don't have to filter what we're doing in the compliance of whether it's self-preserving or whether I'm building up a bad scorecard that eventually I'll be terminated for or whatever. I get to fail, fix it, and do whatever it takes to get it done. So it's a neat, in the sense, it does make the agency value proposition stronger if you know that you're not trying to retain your value in the long term, but only validate it every time you do something for them. Mm-hmm. That was a long speech.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. One of the projects I'm working on right now is for I can't say too much, but it's a substantial.
You work for the CIA. You do CIA shit, don't you?
No, I don't. I do have a contract with the federal government, which is somewhat dormant at this point. But
you always have these secret things.
No, but this one, no. Well, it's a substantial private equity offshore private equity firm, and they have hundreds of millions of dollars that they are interested in the travel and hospitality sector for how to play in this. And so I've laid out some strategies for them, and we'll see. They may not like it because, again, they came in and wanted to go, well, who are the really big guys that we can just go, and it's like, no, that's not even a thing. Right? That does not, you have massive fragmentation. So how do you go build? So I've laid out a strategy for them, and we'll see. They may not like it, but it's like this is a path to get to where you want to go from the industry. This may not align with your, yes, we want to do $50 to $100 million acquisitions. Mm-hmm. You know what? That may not tie. You can go do those, but if you buy a bunch of crap that, doesn't tie together, mm-hmm. Good luck with you.
They just need to buy.
But we'll see. They may not like it.
Buys a Priceline and Expedia and probably Amazon. If they did just buy all those, they're good. I think they're good.
Yeah. And Oracle. If they want a property management system level, they better buy Sabre if they want a CRS, and they better.
No, nobody should own Sabre. Sabre should just go away. No, they've gotten too big to fail in their own mind, and they are dysfunctional. In a lot of ways.
Sabre has some substantial leadership issues. They have lost within the last 9 months a large number of people, and some of them very small. I mean, Alex Alt, the president of hospitality, he's gone. David Meltzer is now with Oracle. Sarah Kennedy Ellis is now the chief marketing. They lost a hospitality solutions chief marketing officer role to Marketo. It's like, no, you want to hang on to people like that who are that good.
Hey, after Paulo Tauscher left, I thought the company went downhill.
Well, but you go through a lot of, and you're like, oh my God, that
mm-hmm.
there are big big gaps. And there are a lot of people they're bringing in. Not that you don't want fresh blood from outside and different perspectives. That's great, but very, very absent now of people with deep kind of hospitality, backgrounds. And a lot of people come into this sector and just go, oh, we'll just do this because we did this in retail, or we did such and such, or we did, and you're like, whoa, hang on. This is a really, really different industry. Yes, you can apply some of those things, but you've got big obstacles here that will prevent you from doing that with kind of the speed that you can do elsewhere.
Yeah,
so.
And it's a dangerous time for that to be happening for them too.
Yes.
So much disruption going on in the space. So
yeah. Oh, one closing comment to our previous part of it. There was a great success for one of my clients, and he wrote back on a text saying, "Hey, this is great. This is a joy to work with, so forth and so on." I was really happy with that. But I texted back and says, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to our first disagreement." And they texted back and they said, "Why would you be looking forward to this?" Is because then you're going to trust the relationship. Because the only way we can get somewhere done is when you know that we can disagree. Because then we're making progress. Just because things are working well and we're agreeing, that's wonderful. Don't take me wrong; I'll take it every day. But the fact when we can finally disagree is the time that we know that the system works.
Is that what you told your wife on the first date as well?
I tried; she didn't believe it either.
Exactly.
There are no disagreements in marriage.
There are no disagreements. You just acceptance and compliance. Resistance is futile. That's happy wife, happy life.
I've told a number of even prospective clients, I'll just go, if you want someone to tell you what you want to hear, I'm not your
cheaper
guy.
people.
You can find a lot of people for a lot less money to go do that, and you probably have a number of them working for you.
Yeah, I'm not that guy that's just going to be. Yep.
I'll do that, and then
tell you the truth.
Yeah, and I mean, I did have one client where I don't know, they might not recommend me, but I got her whole team. I did exactly what they wanted to do, right? And we got the whole team of all these disparate, division, highly dysfunctional organization, horrible data. I mean, and it was surprising because it was a firm that everybody knows pretty well as a leader in their sector. And they want to do it. And then they wound up we don't want to do that. It's like, well, I think this is the solution. And we have buy-in from all of these departmental people. This makes a lot of sense. And financially, it's going to save you money and it's going to do this. And they just, basically the CEO was kind of removed. The CFO was making the decisions he didn't like, and that was it. And so the CFO was hamstringing the organization from its future growth. And you kind of go, okay, I understand, no hard feelings. I understand the dynamic here, but you can keep doing that and doing what you're doing and doing some kind of incremental stuff is great, but that's not what you asked for. I mean, here, Lawrence, because we're going to get measured on here's what the finish line looks like, right? Here's how we're going to. I mean, I open a lot of these consulting engagements with, okay, at the end, you're going to be satisfied when the following things happen, right? We've done this and this and this and this, right? Mm-hmm. Good. And they're like, yeah, that's it. We will be through. It's like, hey, guess what? We checked all those boxes. And I don't know. It does everything you wanted. So do we solve something else you haven't told me about, right? There's something holding you back that I don't know about, and I can't really do anything with that. So you made the decision, but I don't know. So
do we solve world peace when it comes to agency life? I mean, I think we've solved.
I think we probably solved it to death.
I think we did. We solved it to death.
Some of the other articles.
I have
sure.
All over
we got a couple of them.
Yeah.
Well, there's one that you didn't put in, but did you guys see TripAdvisor's going to start selling the top spot on the results page for the destinations now? And it's going to be basically anyone can be in there. So if you're bottom in your destination, you can pay them to be top, and they're not going to show where your ranking is. And so you can
oh boy.
But you're paying them to send the click is to the profile page. So you're basically paying them to go to your profile page, which is then and it's expensive. It's average is about $1.90 per click, and you're sending them to the profile page, and then you're getting the consumer exposed to Trip Connect, so all the OTA rates, and Book Direct, or Instant Booking, which you may or may not be participating in. So you're basically paying $2 to get chosen as one of the decision sets on TripAdvisor, and then maybe sending them out to, big money
Somebody
grab.
else.
Did not see that, but
So
wow,
it's
that's
huge.
You're saying the average click right now is a $1.90, but it's bid
Yeah, so
based,
you
right?
don't actually bid. No, you basically
Oh.
give them a budget, and there's and your budget's going to depend.
Oh.
Just kind of like business listings is kind of a nebulous amount that you're going to pay based on your popularity, similar to
Right.
that. So you basically say, I've got a small, medium, or large budget a month, and just put me in the rotation, basically. So,
Wow.
but you're going to have no way to measure the success because you're not leading out to your booking engine, so you're just basically adding this as an additional expense to your TripAdvisor line and hoping that it works.
Wow.
Yeah,
The
very bizarre.
TripAdvisor is disappointing me in many, many ways. I know they're coming under intense stress from Wall Street and things like that. So they're radically trying to to monetize all that massive traffic, but stuff like that it doesn't help the consumer who's on the site. I mean, it's going to produce, well, it's the same thing. OTAs, I think, tested that and the OTAs are always testing a ton of different things, but they go and test the sort order of what's best, and they suddenly realized, hey, the guy's giving us 50% commissions, which are crappy hotels. We do not want them in the top slot, even though we have kind of the best monetization from it. That's bad for the customers. So.
Okay, I'm just going to bash an agency, a 4-letter agency. I just found out that they use the same Facebook pixel for all their clients.
What?
Yeah.
That doesn't even. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
So there's no isolated data. It's all batch data.
Right.
Wow.
That helps them, not necessarily the client.
I had this 911 email that popped up on my other screen. My super nifty iMac 5K screen, in case I failed to mention that recently in the past 5 minutes. And it popped up, and it's like, what? Seriously? That's the answer to the question?
Lauren, have you started a little product review thing where you're getting demo product from it and then trying to drive?
Hey, I did find a.
I'm not sure if Stuart has had a stroke or not. We can see.
Sorry, I'm on my other screen. I was finding the blog article on.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just checking to see you were kind of quiet there for a little while, and we're kind of slumped over.
Yeah, I just fell asleep. Sorry, boys. No,
we're keeping him up. It's a bad day.
I just posted an article. Pete from my office, who's one of the co-hosts of the Fuel Hotel Marketing Podcast, did an article about the TripAdvisor's sponsor positions. So
really,
nice, excellent, thank you.
Yeah, post it. I missed that. So.
Yeah, I did too. I didn't see that either. So that's good stuff. I'm not saying the promotion is good stuff. Actually, I think it's just another distortion of accuracy and value proposition. The TripAdvisor is just trying to monetize whatever value they can offer.
People are paying blindly to TripAdvisor without being able to measure it because they think they have to. And it's TripAdvisor is a powerful tool if you're using it right, but this is one I'm not sure
they've set up all their tools. I mean, for the bidding, it's still flat. Flat rate, right? It isn't doing what is the term for the Google bid type where it's the second? You're a penny more than the second bidder.
Yeah, they call it their auction, but I don't know if there's a.
TripAdvisor.
It's not a Dutch auction. There is a term for it, but I don't.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
but anyway, TripAdvisor never did that because they figured these guys are unsophisticated.
It's free money for them. It's free money. You say $4 bid. Yeah, it's a $4 bid. Yeah, it's free money
for sure.
So, they've done all sorts of things like that. Not as many knobs and switches, and it's like, guys, you got to make it easy for these guys to work with, and cost effective. And I know you're trying to monetize, but boy, I still think TripAdvisor, that whole separation and the IPO was, I don't know. I know kind of why Expedia did it and everything, but not a good service for that brand.
So, do you guys feel like at some point one of the big two groups are going to buy TripAdvisor?
If they're, I would say Priceline. Priceline can certainly afford it. And again, if they're down, well, I don't know what their market cap is now. It's been hovering around $4 billion or something like that.
Well, that's why I think they're rolling stuff like this out as just a profit grab, right? It's not going to cost their bottom line. It's going to add revenue. I think this could be the play towards.
It's kind of funny. I used to think that
And
Trust
that's
You had missed the window of opportunity when TripAdvisor was still vulnerable in size to get into a market share competition with them, because then TripAdvisor just completely dominated their model. But now I'm beginning to rethink that Trust You has been the tortoise to the hare in this. That their methodology and integrity of purpose and their maintenance of that, I think, is bringing them back up into status again. In comparison to what TripAdvisor is doing, because TripAdvisor is basically turning into a whore and doing whatever it is.
Holy cow!
Trust You's, kind of meta search review stuff is great, because they really kind of turned it from having this focus on the hotel companies to really switching it, and they're getting all their revenue. I mean, Google, all that stuff is Trust You. Sort of thing. And Expedia, all these guys are using it, and it's good quality stuff.
It's a lot of body blows for the TripAdvisor. Oh, our program's working, we're great. And then after their conference, 30 days later, actually, it's not. All the numbers we told you were made up. And then hey, by the way, we purposely omit reviews that are not to our financial benefit of those people that are paying us a lot of money, and so that they're not as unbiased as they are, and they are being filtered, and they are being manually handled. And then that hiccup that happened through all of that, which has always been kind of known, but never really openly displayed.
I just don't know how much that gets out to the common public, though.
It doesn't.
I feel like it's still the de facto. It's synonymous, right? It's the Kleenex of reviews, right? It's everyone thinks.
And it will. I mean, and it's a long way before that gets below that threshold. I mean, I'm just saying that now it's not as pretty as it once was. It's not as pristine of a concept as it had once envisioned itself, and what made it grow to the level that it did. And then now things like this, where we're not worried about the best being shown to the guest user. We're just with the person that has the most money is going to get shown to the user.
Right.
And that mentality, that mind shift to it, I think in the world of discovery now with the Ubers and so forth, this is a bad path for them to go down. They need to clean this up. Yes. In that sense,
absolutely.
because
this could backfire when you really think about it. So theoretically, the worst property in your market could be shown at the top of the results. So from a consumer experience perspective, that could be terrible, because I'm thinking that TripAdvisor is telling me this is the person I should choose. It's at the top of the list. It's implied, right? That this is, and now I go and read terrible reviews or don't pay attention to the reviews and just click happy and go stay there. Even worse, have a terrible experience. My trust in the brand of TripAdvisor goes down. So this is very short-sighted in my opinion.
They have extra clicks and non-productive. It's all the stuff. I mean, they need to be looking at the Google playbook, which is in AdWords. You have crappy ads going to crummy sites. It doesn't matter how much you pay. You are not going to. You're going to have to pay. Right. I think there actually are limits. You go $50 a click, they may still go, sorry. Your money is no good here.
Unless you're like mesothelioma keywords, then anything over a certain amount.
And it goes back to our earlier discussion too. It's like when I recommended a software to a client, and they went and looked at it and so forth. Somebody that was trying to be disclaiming because it wasn't their recommendation in their internal organization. They said, "So you're making money off of that? Yeah, they're going to give you something if we turn into their client." I'm like, "No, not at all. Yeah. I'm not getting nothing, not even a freaking Christmas card. I'm recommending them because based on the problem you have, this is a good solution for you." Compared to the shit solution you just offered. Nobody, I mean, didn't say that, but so it's that it's truth and honesty. It's like, look, I'm not getting something from it, so my recommendation is pure. Now, that said, now you look at TripAdvisor, it's like, here's this hotel because they gave us money,
right?
Not because it's what we should tell you want to see. It's because they gave us money to tell you. So,
and Lauren, you're an idiot like me, because the number of consultants who go and thrive in terms of referral payments is massive, right? And I disclose all that stuff. I go, nope, I'm on nobody's payroll. I work for you. That's my only revenue stream. There is no conflict of interest. But the number of folks who don't discuss that and get healthy, I mean, I get hit all the time. Hey, easy 20% of the first year, whatever the case may be, maybe lower percentage of permanent residual. It's like, I don't do that. Even if you're the best, it's like, hey, impress me with your product, do it. I'll give you the referral. You don't even have to pay me. Sort of thing. Well, and you will get the referral because you're great. but that's the only thing
I've even had
fair
that
to my customer who's paying me.
Yeah, I've had that, and I actually, you and I had that conversation when I first started consulting. I said, "Well, how do you?"
That's right.
And to that end, even when I do call up a product and tell them I want to connect them to a client, they're skeptical, and it's like, well, and it's like, no, dude, I'm not. I want nothing from this. My purpose of this is to create a solution for a client. And it's funny because I remember talking to one vendor, and they're like, well, why would you do this? I mean, we don't mind giving you something. No. I said, it's kind of like the Tao Te Ching thing. A wise man knows when he's rich enough. My contract, what I got with the client, is what I agreed to accept as a value proposition for what I was doing for them. I don't need to have hidden fees and additional costs and other places to find revenue for this. If I didn't like the price that I was being paid, I shouldn't have quoted the price to be paid for.
Right.
I mean, it sounds all high and lofty and mighty, but it's really the best way to get business done because it keeps your honesty and truth.
Well, and that's right. And I tell them, I said, here's my problem with it. And I said, hey, I've got, if people want to give me money, that's fine. But I go, if you give me money, it's a problem, because let's say you have the best product. By far, you are the right decision. I need to be transparent to my client and say, hey, they're giving me X% of this sale. Sort of thing. Immediately, that client brings up a question. Well, is that really the best, or just because they're right. Now, we appreciate that he's communicating this, but is this for us? And I go, and that sort of thing is, that doesn't work. That introduces questions that are going to wind up undermining my ability to do a good job for them, because again, then they aren't going to trust me to go do and I'll say, here are the ugly things about this product. Guess what? For what you need, there is no perfect solution, but and I've done a wildly varied number of recommendations. I've told people, no, for you start off on WordPress. Go build this up yourself. We'll do it very inexpensive. Get the trap. Now, once you're here, now you can start affording to go do something better. But guess what? That's all your own data. And then you can migrate it off easily to these guys. And you've got all your own tracking codes and your own analytics, your own AdWords. And then you can take it to them, and it's still yours. Then you can go build on top of that. And
hey, did we piss Stuart off? Did Stuart decide that he just didn't want to hang out with us anymore? Because he's still on. He's still here, kind of, but he's not here. But no, it also lends itself to the show in a degree.
I think just even Stuart's picture adds some credibility.
It does add to it, doesn't it? But the idea of it is that early on, and we've had these discussions as the show kept progressing, and we kept doing it every week, is, do we want sponsors? Do we want people, because this thing cost me probably, I think, around $600 a year to do in software. And it's like, no, I'd much rather have it where we can talk about anybody in any way we want to without thinking, oh gosh, they're our sponsors, so we really can't be totally honest with what we think about them. It's like, no, actually, we'll bash it. We're an equal opportunity basher, and if Ed was here, he'd validate that statement.
Right. And I mean, because I was saying not very complimentary things about Marriott. Well, they're clients. So but it's not that they're perfect or anything. But if all of a sudden they're a sponsor.
Oh, I lost everybody. Stuart, I lost you, and I think I lost Robert. That's odd. Robert, I lost you as well. Well, with that in mind, not knowing whether I'm still online or not, I'll have to say that it's been close to 2 hours anyway. So we've done our due course of time. Our typical 2 hours of any tangent is a good tangent. I do appreciate Stuart and Robert for joining today as co-hosts. It's always a wonderful privilege to have co-hosts that are willing to take the time and share their expertise and so forth, and went through a variety of things. For show notes and details, for those who want to know more about Stuart at Field Travel, you can go to fieldtravel.com. They do an amazingly excellent podcast. So it would be fieldtravel.com/podcast. And for Robert Cole with Rock Cheetah, it is Robert Cole at Robert K. Cole for social, and rockcheetah.com for his consulting work. For archive of this show, along with show notes and links to all the different articles that we did discuss today, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. There you'll see the link to the show, or hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/124, which is the show number. If you would like to contribute content or participate in the show, you can reach out to me by emailing me at lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. and share with me any thoughts that you may have or feedback. We always appreciate the feedback as well. And we do have a weekly podcast that we do, as well as also Monday Marketing Minute, which is helpful tips on questions that we don't often get to answer to on the live show. So with that, I thank everyone for their time, and I hope I'm still in line to say that. Maybe they're elsewhere, but to everyone, thank you so much for the participation, and we will talk to you next week on show number 125. So until then, thank you, and have a great and a happy Merry Christmas, and happy past Hanukkah and Festivus for the rest of us as well. All right, talk to you all again next week, next Friday, 11:30 Eastern.